Hello, so this is going to be another video on half face masks versus full face masks, because apparently videos where I've talked about this have become quite popular, so I'd like to expand on it a little bit more for some of the other questions people raise. So what I'm going to say first of all is I would never recommend dust masks, you know, the ones which have one or two straps that literally just sit in front of your nose and your mouth. Now, there are a couple of brands of dust masks where if you get a very good one, they make a perfect fit to your face. They're actually a practical mask. Most of the ones I've tried have never made a good face seal. And people have said, oh, you've just got the wrong size, you know, where I've tried ones in small and medium and none of them fit. So, you know, for me they don't work, for a lot of other people they don't work, so I would never personally recommend them. So, often it comes down to the argument, what would you prefer, a half face mask or a full face mask, or a full face respirator? Now, as I've said in other videos, there are loads of different designs for both half face masks and full face masks. So in this video, we are not considering the difference between a full face mask and a half face mask in terms of how good the field of view is and things like that, because that's really going to vary from mask to mask. So, what are some of the advantages of a half face mask to begin with? Well, you can get these either with replaceable or non-replaceable filters. This is a 3M one with non-replaceable filters, however I've got one official 3M mask, a 7500 with replaceable filters, then I've got a Chinese copy of a 3M mask, I think it's a 3M 6000 copy, it also takes replaceable filters, so that's not an issue. You can find what you want. There are also some brands of half face masks that take 40mm NATO filters. If I spot one of those at a good price at some point, I might get one to do videos on. However, I suspect a half face mask with the weight of a full 40mm NATO filter on it might be quite impractical. So, one of the advantages, and this is a big advantage with a half face mask, is you can wear glasses with them. Now, it's not always the most practical thing, like your glasses won't necessarily make as good a fit as they would if you're wearing them normally. But, you know, it's much better than not having glasses on, and you should get one that, don't interfere with the seal of the mask. Now, the issue is with half face masks is you're probably quite often going to have to wear some sort of safety goggles with them as well. So as you can see, this is suddenly not very practical because I've got my glasses wedged on with the safety glasses wedged on. The reason being, of course, is that a half face mask isn't going to give you any eye protection. One of my big complaints with them is that a half face mask, you know, when it comes to chemical agents, eye protection is something you really need. And also, if you look here, you can see my fingers can touch my eyes. There's a big enough gap around these glasses that they're not actually going to stop anything other than chemicals directly splashing into your face, getting into your eyes. If it's in a gas or vapour form, it's getting into your eyes. So, you know, the eyes are always vulnerable to chemicals. So, some people might find half-face masks more comfortable, but I actually find them less comfortable. Mostly for the reason that they generally have 4 straps, not 6. Most full-face respirators always have 5 or 6 straps. So, the issue is that the weight of the mask is kind of held on through 2 points in your head. Now, the 3M ones do have these good head harness things, which are actually useful, because it simulates a bit better having a full head harness rather than just a band going around the back of your head and one at your neck, as you can see there. But the issue being is that, in my opinion, a half face mask actually becomes less practical, because you have to have, because it has less straps, each strap has to be done tighter to pull it to your face properly, which makes the mask less comfortable. I mean, again, this could vary from design to design, but I'm not a massive fan of them. One thing I do like with half face masks is if you get these straps loose enough, it's a bit tight and uncomfortable for me to do this here. But you can have the bottom 2 straps done fairly loosely, and then you can have the mask stowed like this around your neck, and then when you want to wear it you can just pull it up and put the top headband on, you know, by doing that, rather than, you know, having to take the mask off and on fully each time. However, saying that, lots of full face masks come with a neck strap where it hangs loosely from your neck, so you can then take it on and off easily like that. So okay, now let's talk about the full face masks. What advantages does that have? Okay, so a full face mask, this one being the S6 or SR6. So this gives you obviously full face protection, most importantly eye protection. Now immediately a disadvantage is, as you would obviously have guessed, that if you're wearing a full face mask, unless you buy optical inserts for them, like basically a pair of glasses manufactured for the mask, so they can be stowed inside properly and you can see, you can't use glasses with them. But an advantage to a full face mask is obviously that your face is fully protected. None of my actual face is exposed. My ears are exposed, but that's a common design with gas masks, because if you're in full chemical protective gear, you're going to have a hood over your head with the mask on as well. So, obviously, as I said, main thing is eyes are protected, which you don't get with a half face mask. No matter what chemical vapours are in the air or splashing up, your eyes are protected. Generally, I found more full face masks tend to have more features. If you wanted a drinking tube system or something like that, yeah, a full face mask is going to include that. I've never seen those on half face masks. Now, in general, as I said, some half face masks have it, but full face masks at least have a 40mm system, which means it's really easy to replace the filters. You take a filter off, you get your new filter out, then you screw it back on. He says while doing the screw thread wrong on this one. Yep, that's sod's law, isn't it? Say how great a feature is and then it doesn't work when I try and demonstrate it. And as said, more comfortable straps. Basically, although these straps are not good on an S6, in my opinion, they're sort of those primitive old-fashioned design straps, bit better than the light anti-gas respirators that came before it. You've got the semi-sort of elasticated straps, but mostly the main thing is a 6-point head harness. So as said with the other mask, it means it's actually more comfortable on your face simply because you've got, or your head, because you've got the mask secured in more points. Therefore you can adjust the pressure of each of the straps a little bit more or less. Modern masks tend to have like this mesh kind of sort of skull cap kind of thing. Almost like a big net that goes over the total back, so you know, again, you've got more points of securing the mask on your head. Although it might only have 6 straps, you know, the pressure is evenly distributed across the back of your head. What that just means in reality is if you've got the mask on for a long period of time, it's more comfortable because, you know, you've got it tightened just where it needs to be tightened rather than having to do it up tighter than it needs to be because, you know, you're trying to get it to fit properly. Now, another thing that I've mentioned before is supposedly from trials they found that if people tighten their masks more, they're less likely to wear the mask properly. As in, you know, people find it uncomfortable to have the mask tight, so then they keep breaking the seal or messing about with the mask, you know, endangering them. So it's actually better to have a mask that's loose and sits comfortably, you know, that way. Now, obviously, weight, a full face mask is going to weigh more, sometimes twice the weight of a half face mask. Not really much you can do about that, but there's obviously a lot more mask here than with a half face mask. Now, also, because militaries and lots of heavy industrial uses require full face masks for various things, you know, more than half face masks to a degree, I'd say. I find that the designs tend to have gotten a lot better. Like, if you pick a top-of-the-line half face mask, it's still very primitive. As I said, it's a 4-strap design normally. You know, that doesn't really do much. You know, they can make them quite comfortable and everything, but a lot more R&D in a full face mask. So obviously, improvements to the rubbers, you know, strap design, voice diaphragms, things like that. I don't know if I've ever seen a half face mask with a voice diaphragm either, you know, the thing where you talk, where you can be understood better. Now, the S6 doesn't really have a very good voice diaphragm if it kind of has one at all, so that's not the best mask to demonstrate it with. But if I was to get one of my, you know, like modern NATO masks with a very good big voice diaphragm on the front, and I talked, you know, you'd probably hear me more clearly through the full face mask than the half face mask. So, hopefully this has helped you decide which you're going to get. If you want it for any sort of survival purpose or whatever, I would always go with a full face mask. You know, just simply because it's going to give you better protection. I actually often find you can get them cheaper, weirdly, but I think that's just because of how much military surplus is out there. With 3M masks, you're generally going to have to pay £30 at a minimum for a 3M half-face mask. You know, then going up in price, whereas the military ones often you could get for less than £30 a very good condition military surplus mask. As I said, main thing I like about full face masks is because most are made to a military standard, they're either going to have NATO or GOST filter ports. Obviously NATO being a preferable option for most people in the world, not necessarily in the Russian sort of regions, but whereas half face masks tend to be quite proprietary, so as in you know, each brand, 3M, Scott, whoever else, might use their own filter design.
which means the price of filters and availability is always lower. So I think that covers most of the points, to be honest, but yeah. The only times I could think a half face mask might be handy is if you just conveniently need it for like dust stuff, and if it's dust sort of type things that don't irritate your eyes. Because as said, lots of things cause eye irritation or, you know, eye damage, so you need a full face mask for that reason. I've even found when I use a half face mask for like hay fever kind of things, often it still gets set off because spores or whatever get into my eyes, or pollen gets into my eyes, which still causes them to get itchy, whereas a full face mask doesn't, you know, do that. The only other advantage I can think of the half face mask is they're less claustrophobic if you're somebody, and as I said, I'm personally not. But a half face mask, of course, something that covers less of your head, you have better field of view, doesn't mess with your senses as much, is going to cause less claustrophobia. So as I said, that's the summary of both of these. Personally, in like 90+% of the situations, I'd go with a full face mask, but that's not to say there aren't times when this would be useful. But I'm just sort of hoping this video has cleared up a few more of the questions people have, saying, but this one has this feature and this one doesn't, so therefore this one is better. Well, not necessarily. You have to weigh up the pros and cons of what you want from a mask, and then decide which one is best for you. So there you go, full face versus half face mask. Hopefully that's answered a few more questions regarding them.